Hey, build show. Steve Baczek, architect. Yeah. Are you ready to talk some details? I figured, we're probably about halfway through the construction of the house. And I think it's really important sometimes, maybe we jump in and we could just look at a couple details, kind of in detail, if you will, right? So the couple that stand out, roof eave, as well as the slab and foundation wall intersection. But yeah, in this video, we're talking details.
Forever Home, a Build Original series, is brought to you by Builders First Source, AZEK Exteriors, Huber Engineered Woods, and Rockwool. Forever Home, a Build Original series.
Hey, Build Show, Steve Baczek, architect. Yeah, we're out here at the Forever Home. Before we talk about building and what's going on here, let's take a little bit of time to talk about one of our sponsors, Huber Engineered Woods. Now, as an architect, when I'm thinking about an enclosure system, I want something that I know is going to be predictable and have the ability to manage water, air, vapor, and thermal. Yeah, a nice system that's handling building science. So I turn to the Huber system of products. So it starts with their sheathing. This has an integrated weather-resistant barrier on the top. It's laminated to their 7/16" sheathing, and then on the inside here we have 1 inch of poly iso. So we have some thermal control here, total thermal break on that exterior sheathing. And then for the joints, of course, they have a whole system of tape, zip system flashing tape. So this takes care of the air barrier in the system. They have a whole system of stretch tape, flashing tape for our window installs. When we climb up onto the roof, we have their ice barrier, water barrier. This is for high temperature applications. We can put that under metal roofs. And here we're using it as a safeguard at this lower part of the wall near the deck. And as you know, I love rain screens. So Zip makes one. This is a matrix of wire, coated wire on the inside, sits on the wall. This is probably about 1/4 of an inch. It can drain water. There is some venting there. It's highly permeable, and we can put our cladding on there. In this case here, we're doing shingles. This is a perfect rain screen for our shingles. There you have it, whole system of products, right? When I'm thinking about building, I'm thinking, let's build it right, let's build it once, and let's build it to last. Huber Engineered system of products. So, let's get into it. Mock-ups, right? I'm gonna come around the side here so we can start with kind of the outside and then we'll peel it away. You do mock-ups because, one, you wanna see how all of the pieces fit. You wanna make sure everybody that is doing the work is on board and that things are being done right. You can see we have our zip, our sheathing here. That's what we're using on the outside of the wall. You can see we have our AZEK exteriors. This is all of our trim molding. So we're doing a 5/4 corner board. We typically do a 5/4 by 5 and 5/4 by 6. So 4.5, 5.5. They meet there, so we get that 5.5 inch corner. A little tip, we always put the end of the face board on the side of the house. So the face board faces the front. You can see our eave trim. We have a return across here. So we have our 1x8 fascia, 7.25. We have our 1x3 sub fascia, and then we have a little cap board here. We also have our 1x5. This is our rake board, and the rake board gets built out. You can see I could tuck my fingers in behind there. That's so that we can tuck that siding up in there, but we have that venting capability at the top of the walls. And then of course, we just have a bunch of 1x here, 1x8, 1x3, and then a 1x10 here. This is all AZEK exterior trim that makes up the rake, right? So the eave is the part that comes out flat on the low side of the roof. The part that comes out at the ends of the roof is called the rake, hence rake board, fascia, sub fascia, rake soffit, fascia, sub-fascia, cap board, soffit. Let's go around the corner here and we'll peel a little of this away. So you can see here, now a lot of people don't do this, and you know, Jim and Shoreline, they don't cut any corners, right? The key to success is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. So there's a lot of builders out there that won't put a rake edge on the roof. They'll just kind of ignore it. They'll run the shingles long and call it a day. But you notice Jim and his guys, they have that rake edge here. It's a piece of metal that goes out and basically supports the shingle, but you can see here, it's probably about an inch overhang of the shingles. Just again, to keep as much water off of that assembly as you possibly can. And that cap board, you can see there is a slope on it, right? That sub-fascia increases as it goes back. So New England trim guys, they're on top of this. They understand the terms down and out. So down and out, make it your neighbor's problem, right? And we have our 5/8 inch zip roof sheathing. We never do 7/16. We always do a 5/8 there. You can see Jim likes to just put a piece of tape here and it goes over the fascia. That way there, if we get any backup of any water, ice damming, which we won't get on this one. And in fact, here you can see he actually has the HT, which is high temp roofing membrane. It's just not out on the zip here, but that comes down. So you have this tape that goes over fascia to roof sheathing. Then the metal drip edge gets put down on there, and then the membrane, and the membrane gets taped. So if anything ever did, say, back up on the shingle, it's gonna make it to the membrane, and the membrane is gonna be attached out over this drip edge here. And you can see again, if I put my finger in there, we're talking about 3 inches of overhang on that roof shingle. So now when we put our roof gutter in there, it's not dropping down the inside, it's literally dripping down in the middle of the gutter. Now, you don't want that to go too far because then in heavy rains, the water's gonna go and it's just gonna catapult out over the roof gutter. So there's a little science to the size of the roof gutter, how high it goes up, how low it comes down, all of that to kind of make that perfect fit. But if we come around the side here, now you can see the guts of how did all of this go from framing to the pretty finished work, right? So this is a facsimile of the top cord of our roof truss coming down, and then that gets connected to a 2x6 rough fascia. Now the rough fascia, the whole purpose of that is I order the trusses to literally be 1.5 inches long. And the reason we do that is we haven't quite found a truss manufacturer that can make 50 trusses, put them in a row, and have that fascia be in perfect alignment. Things happen out on the job site. So if we order them 1.5 inches long, then guess what? We can put the roof trusses in, we can snap a line, they can cut all the tails of that roof truss, and what do we end up with? A nice straight line. But we want to be able to hold that line in place. So that's where I call for this 1.5 inch 2x6. So that basically gives us that lateral rigidity out at the end of our 2-foot overhang. And then again, like I said, the 5/8 inch roof sheathing. Then we have a 2x6 that goes up against the wall sheathing. This is just basically a ledger. And then this is basically our soffit frame. It's a 2x6. It comes out, it grabs that 2x6 fascia that we can then nail into. It gets nailed into the ledger, but all of the fascia and stuff that's gonna get attached to that can get nailed through. Plus this will then get attached to each of those truss tails that come down. So we're going to create this triangular system of connection that will be a very strong system. So if my 160-pound frame did happen to walk along the edge of that roof, this isn't going to fold down because it is very strong. Now, the last part, the venting of our vented roof assembly, right? You might have seen it in the roof framing video where I talked about inside we had the AZEK vent and how we take the air around our insulation and then bring it up to the ridge vent. Well, we got to get it into the soffit to get it up behind the AccuVent. So how do we do that? Well, that's what this little strip is here. So that is a 1-inch strip of CoreVent. CoreVent is a vented material. I don't have a piece of it, but think of it as basically a honeycomb corrugated strip that goes up, and the air can literally just go up in here and it goes up into that soffit area there. And then we'll finish out the soffit here with our AZEK exterior boards, just like we would have done 100 years ago. And then before we cut out on the mock-up, I just wanted to show you this. This is Zip's rain screen system. So this is going to go all along the wall, and we'll have a little vent release detail here where, just like the rake board, we'll have a little freeze board that's barged out a little, so any of the air that comes up through this matrix can then bleed out. It'll also be open at the bottom, and you can see this is just that kind of cubed like chessboard of an entangled mesh, so that when we put our shingles on there, it doesn't compress it in any way. We have that drainage space behind there as well as that ventilated space. So we're gonna head back to the studio. We're gonna talk about this detail in detail. I'll fire up that vibe board and we'll continue the discussion down there. And we also have a second detail that we're gonna put in where we talk about the concrete slab in the basement and how that interfaces with our foundation wall. So I'll see you back at the studio. All right, build show. So yeah, how about that mock-up? Probably the biggest marketing tactic for the mock-up is, think about how involved your clients now become. Because you can't go out and do the whole house, and you don't want to start doing the house and then have them come out and say, I don't like it, right? So it's kind of that check and balance system. But more importantly, you're engaging the client into that design. We're building a full-scale model. They're getting to see it. They're getting to participate. They're loving it. So let's talk a little bit about that detail. Here is the top of our wall, all right? And that's our 2x6, and then we have our 6 zip on the outside here, and 2x6 wall there. The venting we need 2 vents here, right? We need the one vent here where you see blocking, and what that allows is, that allows this ventilation space here to come up and vent out, right? That's a little wide of a brush there, but we'll go to that one, right? It allows that vent space to go up and come out there. So we could take care of the wall and then how that trim here, how that engages that soffit, but we also have to pay attention to how does that trim engage the window, right? And we've done some other mock-ups out there, but how that engages the window, where does that trim hit on the window? Is it above the head trim, so there's 2 pieces, or is that the head trim that we just cut to whatever the head trim is and run that around that area? You can also see here that we have our 1x boards, tongue and groove boards. Those will make up our soffit. And one of the things Jim likes, he likes to put the vent, and you can see it here. This is the 1x3 continuous vent strip. So this is in fact 1 inch here. And he likes to put that in what I would call a blind spot. So when I'm looking at it up here, I'm gonna see the fascia board. And notice that one's up a little, and I think he even tucks it up just a little bit on that 1x. So it's not out here in the middle or over here where you can easily engage that in view. Here it's hidden right behind. Now, to be able to do that means that when we bring our outrigger over here, we have to do a little tapered cut. To Jim, that's no problem. And what that does is that allows air to go up here go up here and into this ventilation space and out the building up above there. And to stop it here from a problem called wind washing. Wind washing is when air is allowed to come up here and it can blow through into this insulation. Because this blown in air insulation here, remember, this is air permeable. So air, if I put a blow dryer on that on one side and I put my hand on the other, I will feel the energy of the blow dryer moving heat energy across that insulation. So we don't want to be able to have that happen. So what we do is, part of that system is we put in that AccuVent here, and I always draw it down here, but in this case here, it actually gets stapled here, it goes up and it folds up like that. That's what's out on the job site there. And then what we'll do is we'll come in and put in some closed cell here, and you'll see that 4 inches of closed cell. And what that does is that is what says no to the wind washing. So now the air that goes in here through our continuous vent strip moves up here and can only go up here. It never challenges our blown in insulation. And then of course we have all of the other pieces that you saw out there. We have our metal drip edge, we have our fascia board, and that we did the returns on the outside. This will set us up for a nice little gutter system to happen there, and then that'll come down and feed that. But that is basically the building science slash construction of that soffit and mock-up. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Quick one, but yeah, roofs, especially vented roofs, all unvented roofs, they can get funny, and not everybody understands all of the intricacies that are associated with it, but now you do. All right, so I made my way downstairs. Hopefully you enjoyed that little stint where we talked about that roof eave mock-up, as well as we headed back to the studio there for a short stint and we broke down that detail in drawing form. But now we're down in the basement, and I told you there was a second detail that I wanted to go over with you, and that's kind of our sub-slab preparation, and then how does that tie into all of our control layers for our basement wall assembly, right? So slab and wall assembly meet. Two things that I wanted to point out. One, over here you can see we have a couple areas. Plumbing, this is my guest toilet, sink, and then the box there, that is for our shower drain. And then you can see we have an ejector pump there that's going to take all of the gray water and sewage that comes in, and it's going to elevate it into a pipe where we can go out above the invert to our septic tank and take it. So that's how we get stuff that happens below the slab out the wall up at 6 feet or so above the slab. I'm going to walk over here, and it's really interesting walking on this because it's almost somewhat like a trampoline walking on it. So I'm walking on comfort board 80. This is a pretty dense material, but it still has a little bit of give, you can see. So my 160-pound frame, when I stand on there, it makes a little depression there. I was jokingly earlier saying I might attempt to do a backflip, but then I realized, yeah, maybe backflips I'm beyond those days, so no backflip from Steve here today. But comfort board 80, yeah, there's 2 layers. All of the joints are staggered, and you can see here, it's literally written right across it, R8. That's roughly R4 per inch. We have 4 inches. You do the math, I'll do it with you. 4 times 4, 16. So we have a continuous layer of R16 under here. Now, for those of you that don't think you can put comfort board underneath the slab, you certainly can. We have a very, very good water management system. We have our sump pump over there that basically drains to daylight. We can make it and go from a passive to an active system in a heartbeat there. I don't think we ever will, but this whole sub-slab stone bed that you'll see in a minute all drains to a pipe on the back side. So this, honestly, it's never gonna see water. As we look at this, it's gonna get covered, and I don't think anybody's gonna see this stone for, you know, likely the next 100 years. So it'll be a while before I can get back here and take another look at this stone. But you can see here, we have our 10-inch deep footing that I'm standing on there. And so we have 2 inches, so that means we have 8 inches of stone. This is a 3/4 inch stone. There's no fines in it. It is in fact just basically a whole bunch of little stones in there. It's not something you're gonna rake very easy unless you want some massive shoulder workout. But you can see here that that first layer of 2-inch aligns perfectly with the top of the footing there. And notice that we do have our staggered joints there. So there's that buildup on top of the stone. Now, the stone is doing a number of things. One, it's allowing for water to migrate laterally into our system. Around the perimeter here, we actually have a perimeter drain. You saw it in one of the previous videos when we were talking about prepping here. So that takes the water over to the sump pump to an exterior pipe to daylight, but that gathers the water, and the water that might come up, say, in the middle of the slab has the ability to laterally migrate into those pipes and make their way outside of the building. So on top of that, that stone becomes a capillary break, right? So no water's really ever gonna get to the insulation as long as our perimeter drain and sump pump are doing their job. And then we have our 15 mil stego. That is basically a vapor barrier. I would attempt to puncture it, but yeah, you're not gonna puncture this stuff very easy. This is kind of the industry standard for under concrete vapor barriers. We use it pretty much on all of our projects. Now, one of the things that I like about stego is they don't stop at just that one material. They like to deal in systems, right? So here we have this 2-inch tape. It's basically a 2-sided tape. So it has a facer on both sides. You can pull it off and you can see the guys have already installed it here. So they're running around and they're putting it on the foundation just a little bit up above. And then they're gonna peel that facer off when they go to install the stego, and it's basically gonna fold up the wall 2 inches. One of the biggest gripes that we've had with concrete flat work guys is they like to come in here, they wanna snap a line 4 inches above the insulation, and they wanna be able to see that line when the concrete's getting pumped here, so they know where they're screeding to, so that they can get the right depth in that concrete slab. Well, guess what? If I take that stego and I roll it up the wall 18 inches, can't snap a line on plastic. They absolutely hate it. So, you know, Jim and his guys, knowing that and working as a team with their flat work guys, they got this 2-sided tape. They're only gonna go up 2 inches. And then they're gonna take that stego, they're gonna fold it up, and like I said, and then the last thing they'll do is they'll have a bunch of 4-inch dimensional comfort board that after that gets folded up, they're gonna come in here, they'll put a couple dabs of construction adhesive, and then that'll sit just like that. And not only will they have the line, but then the concrete flat work guys will have that top of the insulation line that they know exactly where to screed to get that 4-inch slab in here. So that's basically the rundown. Next step is to get a few trucks of concrete in here and start spreading it. But while we're waiting on them to do that, why don't we head back to the studio, we'll fire up that vibe board, and we'll take a look at the second detail in this bonus video. So I'll see you back at the studio. All right, build show. So hopefully you're enjoying the video out on the job site. I thought we'd take a few minutes, we'd jump into the studio, and you know, as an architect, who does not like looking at drawings? Yeah, let's start out on the edge of the wall. So you can see here, all right, there's our footing. This is our foundation wall here. All right, we have some rebar going up. We have our perimeter drain, all of that good stuff going on there. You can see we have our slab here, and we do call out for a sill sealer here. We like to break any of our wood with that. Now, that wasn't in, you just saw the insulation happening down there. You can see that here, all right, and that comes across. Notice, we always put in 2 layers. And the reason for that is that allows us to put in a 2-inch layer on top, 2-inch layer on the bottom, of course our slab, 4 inches, and you can see that is all called out. 4-inch concrete slab. 2 2-inch layers, comfort board 80, are 16.8, yes, 16.8. So it's a good number to be under the slab. You got to remember, the temperature up here, let's just say 70 degrees, we'll keep it easy math. Ground temperature, 55. Delta, 15 degrees. So it's not the largest heat loss in the house, but understand, as we make other parts of the house really, really good, these parts of the house start looking worse and worse and worse until you balance them out, right? You have to be proportional about what you do. And this is a pretty easy one to put insulation on for the slab. Of course, we have our stego there, and we have that called out right here. That's a 15 mil stego, all joints taped. Now, where I tend to differ on these details, you'll see a lot of people, they want to bring that stego all the way up, and then they'll bring tape down over it. They want to connect it thinking that, okay, it's airtight. Well, I'm gonna let you in on a little Steve secret. I have never, ever, 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 ever seen anybody go up, put their lips on a concrete wall, and be able to blow through it. I don't know about you, but I am okay with saying concrete is an air barrier. Yeah, I'm pretty good with that. So one of the issues that comes about is if we bring that stego over and up, you can't snap a line to it because it's poly. And the flat work guys, or concrete guys, they get all miffed about it. And, oh yeah, I can't do my job. How do I know the slab is going to be at the right height? Blah, 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 blah. So probably a dozen projects ago, I talked with the stego technical team. And I said, if we just bring that over and lay it down, is that good enough? Yes. Now, there is a little bit of a path here, but we're going to close that off with 2 inches of closed cell there. So we don't really have a migratory path for vapor to move. And it's going to move through here pretty darn slow because it's going to go through that rigid insulation, which is somewhat permeable. And then it's just going to get stopped at that poly. So we really don't have to worry about it. Plus, we have 12-inch stone bed with a perforated pipe there. So the beauty of this is that we do get full encapsulation of the slab, right? There's no thermal break here, and there's no thermal break there. So everything inside here is inside, everything outside here is outside. And we bring that top layer over the top of the slab and we turn it up, and then it'll sit here and wait to receive that 2 inches of closed cell that will come down here and attach to it. And that will be, I don't know, let's just call it R12-ish. But we also have a 2x4 wall here, so that is going to be R13. So that's R25 together. And you know, whatever moisture is in here, if it doesn't dry out, we probably won't insulate that wall for about 5 months past that wall getting stripped. And utilities are starting, we probably have about, I'd say 4 or 5 weeks So it's going to be a good probably 7 months that that foundation wall has been exposed. And remember, it has waterproofing on the outside here, right? That waterproofing goes out, and then we have some more Comfort Board 80 that we used as a protection board. You saw that, I think it was episode 3 where we talked about that, because 1 was tear down, 2 was foundation, 3 was where we did our waterproofing and such. But you want to encapsulate that slab. So I will give you this little tidbit of information. If you said, Steve, 4 inches under the slab, my budget doesn't make it. Let's run through what I would like to see. I'd like to see 4 inches, right? Or 4 inches here. That's what I'd like to see. If I can't see 4 inches, then I can get rid of the bottom one, and I would love to see 2 inches, right? And if you said, wow, Steve, still 2 inches underneath the whole slab, that's still bothersome to me, then at the very least, you need to come in here and come in there with a 4-foot piece at 2 inches. That is the bare minimum that I would be willing to accept, because we just really need to isolate that slab. It is only a 15-degree delta across there, so you're not battling energy efficiency with this detail only. What you're battling is you don't want to get the slab cold enough and then you run an air conditioning or whatever in the summer, and then you get some high level of moisture, and now stuff starts condensing on that cold surface. So we want to be able to warm up that surface, and the insulation is doing that, basically wrapping that slab. So now when we apply the heat, we can get that slab up to that 70-degree, 68-degree temperature, and it stays out of the range for condensation and having problems there. So that's the real reason we do it. The energy efficiency, I know you've heard me say it, but if you make great choices in durability, health, and comfort, guess what? Energy efficiency, it comes as a byproduct, and air tightness. And so that's how I buy my energy efficiency. We got to make really good choices in the other categories, and then we get good energy efficiency. So anyways, that's the detail for rock wool in the basement.